Welcome everybody from all around the world to our Mexican Mosaic Musings Share and Connect. My name is Caitlin Hepworth. I'd also like to introduce my co-hosts, Mr. Jim Stewart, who is the co-director of Art of Fundamento, and Ms. Nicolina Bamford, who is the communications manager at Art of Fundamento. And we are excited to be bringing this to you today as a group or a team effort. So firstly, what's today going to look like? The first part is regarding the actual symposium itself and the intentions behind the symposium, the organisation of the symposium, and then in particular, my journey developing my particular piece for the exhibition. So that's part one. Part two is about the exhibition, and the very important part of that is sharing the work of all the artists who are involved. And we'll be reading through each artist's statements, giving some focus to each of the artists and their works. Before I start though, what is a Share and Connect? So during COVID, we started this sort of model, which was an open online gathering where we would discuss particular topics regarding mosaics. So we would talk about different approaches to artist practice. We would talk about different artist exhibitions. We would ask people to join us to talk about various things like collaboration or working with natural materials or perhaps their artistic practice. Now, the previous Share and Connects are available to watch on our website, artofundamento.com, on the watch page. So this is really one of the offerings of the Art of Fundamento. We have a curriculum, as you know, which is a sequential layered curriculum for mosaic artists. And we also have a supporting membership program, which offers additional support and educational resources for those enthusiastic about mosaics. But today it's open to all. So the first part of our Share and Connect today is about the Mexican Symposium, which I've just attended in Rosarito in Baja California, Mexico. And before we dive into that actual event, I thought it was a good idea to talk about the general idea of the symposium. So for this event, there were two artistic directors. Primarily, Maestro Giulio Menossi is the creative director behind the entire concept of these symposium events. And the producer, director on the ground, the co-artistic director was Maestra of Aida, Valencia. And Aida is here today.
Hello to everybody. Now, this is going to be a very interesting talk because we had a blast. We had a very good symposium, so I think everybody will enjoy.
So Aida is the co-artistic director, so that together they make this incredible powerhouse. So Giulio has been running these symposiums for a number of years now. This was the 17th symposium event. So the idea started several years ago, and he started in Friuli in northern Italy. So he hosted symposia in Friuli, northern Italy, in Sardinia, which is an island off the west coast of Italy. He's hosted symposia in Adana, Turkey, as well as in Argentina, South America, and several in Mexico. So this was the 17th event. And the whole idea is that Giulio invites artists from around the world to come together in an intense meeting. By intense, I mean it's very short and it's very condensed in terms of your practice. We meet for 2 weeks. It's a cultural exchange. It's an idea exchange. It's a technical exchange. There's friendships formed, connections made, techniques shared, and the artists are invited to make a large-scale mosaic about a theme. And they must do this in what is essentially 11 days or 10 days. We always stretch it out as much as we can because we're all running short of time. So these artists come together, they're given the theme in advance. And the theme for this particular symposium was gender, culture, and migration. The theme was set by the organizing body in Mexico, and the artists are asked to respond to that theme. Now, you can respond in whatever way you feel is suited to you and your practice. Some artists chose to respond more specifically to issues around gender. Other artists chose to respond more specifically to issues around migration or culture. So we all came together and we had thought through our ideas in advance, and we had 2 weeks with full days to make a large work which would then become part of an exhibition. Now, in other symposia, in other countries, each country works slightly differently. In some countries, the mosaics form a growing collection in a city or area of that country. And in fact, some bespoke galleries are talking about housing those collections more permanently. In this instance, the artists were sponsored. So there were a large range of sponsors of the entire event. Each artist was sponsored, and that sponsorship helped to enable the symposium to take place. And the exchange is that the sponsor then receives the artist's work at the end of the exhibition. So the exhibition is actually a 2 to 3 month exhibition. So it's quite a long one this time. It's fantastic. This whole event is certainly not something that's just quickly thrown together. There's a lot of planning, a lot of time, a lot of consideration involved. One of the key groups involved this time was the team from Casa Valencia. This is Aida's studio. It's a working studio, so Aida creates her own gallery work. She also creates large-scale commissions. She runs classes. She hosts tutors to run workshops. And she has a team of people that work with her. Now, her team is larger than this group on the screen now. So I would like to acknowledge the extended team. However, the team that interacted the most with us were Michelle, Aida, and Armando. So this team were working with Aida and really helping us in the symposium. And Aida was one of the coordinators of all the media and social media and the publication. So there was this team plus an extended team at Casa Valencia who was supporting us. So a huge team effort that went into it. Of course, we have the artists as well. So this time, I think we had 11 artists. So Julie Edmonds from England, Giorgia Palombi from Italy, Megan Walsh from the United States, myself from Australia, Neri Mangoizel from Turkey, Bia Lisboa from Brazil, Aida Roche from Russia, Grana Cara from Argentina, Armando Reina from Mexico, Julie Sperling from Canada, and Atsuo Suzumura from Japan. So this group of artists came together. This was our opening ceremony, and we were all gifted these beautiful aprons. Now, of course, all this doesn't happen without some official organisation and sponsorship. So there were some key official parties behind the organisation of the event: the Municipal Institute of Art and Culture, the Committee of Tourism and Convention, and the State Centre of the Arts Rosarito. And it was at the Centre of the Arts Rosarito that the symposium was actually held. And here in this image, we have the Minister of Culture. But not only were these people involved, there were more. And I have a short video that I would like to play you, which goes through a couple of those sponsors. And this gives you an idea of the number of people who were behind this event. So this starts with the Minister of Culture, and this is all of us thanking various sponsors. And you'll notice there's sponsors: restaurants, cafes, bars, people donating pigments, people donating adhesives, businesses donating all sorts of products that really helped it all happen.
En el arte mosaico, cada pieza es importante. Gracias por hacer posible este segundo Simposio Internacional de Mosaico aquí en México, en el Centro Estatal de las Artes.
Gracias, IMAC Rosarito, por todo su apoyo a este gran proyecto.
Gracias a El Encanto por acompañarnos en el Simposio Segundo de Mosaico en Baja California, Rosarito. Muchas gracias.
Gracias las comiditas.
Arigato, Magoni.
Gracias, Mapei.
Gracias, mosaicos venecianos.
Gracias, Montevalle.
Gracias, Ortegas Buffet.
Gracias, uniformes y bordados.
Gracias, Cherry Warner Hunter.
Gracias, Art Studio Inc.
Gracias, Mejacalito.
Gracias, Lola Sabor y Café.
Gracias, La Guarita Restaurante.
Gracias, Trapos Baja.
Muchas gracias al Centro Médico MEDAC.
Gracias, Marea Alta.
Gracias a Popotla Restaurante y Bar.
Gracias, Artsim Baja.
Gracias, Art Mosaic.
Thank you, Aquabar.
Gracias, El Pescador. Gracias de Elite Cervecería.
Gracias, Restaurante El Patio del Festival Plaza.
Gracias, Mosaic Marketing.
Muchas gracias, Expreso 29.
Gracias, La Termo Cervecería.
Muchas gracias también a los restaurantes de Esencia, Ajenjo y Betuchins.
Muchas gracias.
So as you can see, there is a huge team behind the organization. And I think it's really important that I start by acknowledging all of those people, because without that, it can't happen. So that's really around funding the entire event and supporting the artists and the participants on many levels. So now I'd just like to start talking about, once we're there and once we're getting organized, what sort of processes did I have to go through? Well, it all started several weeks before I left, and that is in the concept development. So having attended a number of symposia in the past, it's highly unadvisable to show up with no idea what you're doing. It's highly unadvisable to not turn up with a clear plan, because you will completely drown within the first few days. So my very first time that I attended, I didn't really prepare enough, and I learned my lesson. So this time I thought, okay, what am I going to do? So I took the theme gender, culture, and migration. And I wanted to think about migration as a primary focus, as well as culture, and a little bit of the gender theme as well. I started looking into Aztec and Mayan culture, and I came across a particular goddess, Xochiquetzal, who was a young female goddess associated with fertility and the arts. And I thought the arts is appropriate because mosaic, as we know, is a wonderful art. I particularly was drawn to the fact that this goddess would wear feathered garments, so feathered headdresses and feathered adornments. And she's often depicted wearing the quetzal tail feathers. Now, the quetzal tail feathers are also used in headdresses for other male gods as well as leaders. And some of you may have become aware of the quite famous penacho that was thought to be the property of the Emperor Montezuma. So there's quite a bit of controversy around this particular penacho, or penacho meaning feathered headdress on a helmet. And at the moment, the original piece is housed in the Ethnology Museum in Vienna. And there's some cultural discontent over this because the Mexican government has asked for its return a number of times. However, that has not happened. So instead, in the Anthropological Museum in Mexico City, there is a beautiful replica. And you can see a photo here on the left of me standing in front of that replica, which is incredible, absolutely breathtaking. And on the right, thought to be the original here in the Museum of Ethnology in Vienna. And the primary feather used in this penacho is the quetzal tail. So this is an image of the bird. Of course, the thought of hunting all of these birds to steal their beautiful tail feathers is completely abhorrent to us now. However, the particular feathers were incredibly special and incredibly valuable to the traditional peoples. So why the feather? Well, birds are migratory and birds have no borders and birds are free. Well, hopefully mostly free. So I took the idea of the goddess, I took the idea of the penacho, I took the idea of the feather of the bird, and my initial thought was to create a headdress that symbolized birds from around the world. My initial thought was that I was going to create a series of feathers in this headdress, each from different regions of the world. However, that changed once I started work, and I mainly focused on the colors of the quetzal bird. Now I'd just like to share with you a short video of my actual idea day where I got the idea, and Jim happened to be with me in the studio. We were there filming the curriculum, and he grabbed his phone and just started videoing me. And what I was doing was just starting to think through my idea. I'd found a picture of the original penacho. I was inspired by that, and I was starting to plan out on paper what I might think about. So I always like to start with drawing. Sometimes my drawing is in fact a scribble, as you can see here. So I had the idea of the face and the face of youth. I had the idea of the headdress, and the feathers coming out from that central crown, I was making up a paper mock-up to see how it might work and what I might like to change. Paper, bloody great stuff. I find paper is an excellent thing to use for this because it's quick, it's cheap, you can screw it up and start again any minute. And you can explore ideas very fast, what might work, what's not working, how you might change the shape. Do I mosaic the face before I go in the next 2 weeks? Do I gild the face? Do I model the face? I have gold leaf and I can sculpt. I could sculpt the face. I could use epoxy sculpt, or would the face be better non-gilded and like dark and heavy, looking sad? And then it could also have stuff from hanging here. So that gives you a bit of an idea of just what I was thinking. So my idea was to have a young person whose head was pictured and they were wearing a headdress, which was going to be conceptually carrying the weight of the world. So I thought, well, how am I going to get the face? Well, I happen to know 2 young people, one of which is particularly interested in participating in art. So this is my daughter, Sienna. So then I decided to cast the face. So I started by making a plaster mold, and this is Sienna with Vaseline all over her face. And then in the second image, you can see she's covered in plaster bandage with a very, very small space to breathe. And then the mold was removed from her face, and here she looks very surprised and slightly traumatized. So then I dried it thoroughly and then put a release agent into the mold, and then I cast the face in self-leveling cement. So this is the cement cast of her face, and then I moved into the studio and I started to make some feathers. So this was my initial attempt. So Andrea Kettling, who works with me, made the feathers for me, and they are very thin, very flimsy, not solid yet, but they were able to be sort of collapsed into one pile to take in my bag to the event. So I cross now to the event. So this is day 1. So day 1 is all about the substrate. So all around the studio, all the artists are madly preparing their substrates. So this was my first day. I brought this shape with me, and then the team supplied the thermosheet for everybody. So I started by layering on the thermosheet and working out how things would come together. Also in day 1, I decided to cut the substrate into an ovoid, which an oval shape, which also looked a little bit like the head of a person. So it echoed the shape of the face within. I also rendered my edges, and I applied some hanging hardware at this stage. And then I began to think about where the feathers would go. So on day 2, I attached all the feathers and I started to strengthen them. So you can see the gray tips here. So because the feathers were hanging off the side, I didn't want to strengthen the center part because it would be too heavy. I strengthened the tips. So I used steel mesh and thin set to then strengthen the tips of each of those feathers. And you can see I was working around there. So this is day 2. Day 2, I also got stuck into palette planning. And as you saw with the sponsors earlier, we had sponsorship from the Mexican Mosaic Foundry and the Padermo factory, and we had Smulti from Turkey, and we had other materials as well. We also had some lovely slag here. And the slag is formed when the colors are melted in the crucible and tipped out, and then the residual glass that's left in the crucible becomes the slag or waste glass. And the waste glass creates a beautiful textural material to use. So we had some Turkish pizza, some Mexican smulti, some slag, and some other mixed media as well. So this is day 2. We're now into day 3. This is 11 days, right? Day 3, I start to mosaic. Now, for those of you who know me, I'm fairly busy with the curriculum and the courses that we're running. So I haven't made a mosaic of my own for about 2 years. So when I started mosaicing, I actually had a complete anxiety attack. Aida doesn't know this, but I was pretty much almost in tears because I thought I'd forgotten how to mosaic. I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know how to mosaic anymore. I haven't been practicing. I've lost my flow. I've lost everything. I don't know what to do. And I thought, no, what would you tell your students? Well, you tell your students that you just have to do it and the flow will come, the inspiration will come. Just start sticking down things. So I started. I was also integrating quite a bit of copper and a bit of lead as well. So I was modeling lead feathers that I was able to paint, and I used lead because it's very heavy, and the heaviness of this headdress was very important to me. I also used copper. I use copper a lot in my work because it's malleable and it conducts energy. So I think it's symbolically relevant too. Now we're up to day 4. I'm starting to work my way around the penacho. I'm moving up to the top. I had a bit of a goal of 3 feathers a day. Sometimes I didn't make the goal. Sometimes you have a bad day, and sometimes I exceeded the goal. So I'm starting to now move down into this darker area at the bottom of the penacho here. So much darker, heavier. It's meant to imply damage. It's meant to symbolize weight and heaviness and a burden. So I was trying to go emotionally to some fairly dark places to try and kind of channel angst. I wanted to feel angsty in parts. I wanted it to feel damaged, messy, heavy, and troublesome. So we're now at day 5. And you can start to see here that at day 6, my beautifully organized desk is now a complete schmozzle. I've got stuff everywhere: paint, beads, slag, lead, paint pellets, epoxy sculpt, cutters, shards. It was actually hard to see what was going on. Now, at the time of we're making that, the whole studio is open. It was a beautiful studio, very well appointed, light, spacious, airy, excellent. And people were constantly coming around, visiting the symposium, finding out what all the artists were doing. And we were to engage with those members of the public as they came around and talk to them about our concepts. Of course, I do not speak Spanish and I can barely speak Italian, so I found that very difficult. But nevertheless, we generally were able to communicate our idea. So I'm now moving to the other side. I've turned the work around because it's also very, very heavy. And then at day 7, the cavalry arrives. So Mr. Jimmy Stewart lands in Mexico and comes to join the team. So Jim became a great part of the team. He was really helping me, but also helping the other artists and making sure everyone had a drink, as well as taking some great photos and videos. But really, he was supporting me. He also arrived on my 50th birthday. So that was really nice of him. Thank you, Jim. And Jim went straight to work, painting, cleaning, cutting, and helping me with the work. So we zoomed along. On day 8, which was my 50th birthday, I finished the feathers. But you can see at this point, there's an awful lot still to do. And Giulio was going, Caitlin, you're running out of time. So we've got 3 days left here. I said, okay, come and consult with me, Giulio. Let's work through what I should do next. I knew I needed to build an internal headdress, and then I decided to build a neck piece and a chest plate with a necklace. So this gives you a bit of a feel about where we're up to. There's a high level of focus in the room at all times by all the artists. Often not a lot of talking. The artists were sort of zoning out into their own spaces, working in a focused manner, listening to music or a podcast. Each of the artists had a personal goal each day of what they needed to accomplish. One of the things Aida mentioned is that, all the artists arrive early, and she would say to the team on the ground, oh, yes, the artists want to work. We all turn up early to work because we really want to work. We want to be there. We wanted to engage in the making because it's such a gift to have a solid 11 days in the studio, uninterrupted, no life jobs, no business jobs, no family jobs. We were looked after, picked up, fed, watered. And so that in turn, the expectation is that we focus and that we produce good work. We work with what is available and we produce it quickly. So it really pushes you to work to a new level of a new speed that perhaps in your own studio you're not accustomed to. There's no time for sort of navel gazing and head scratching. Oh, I just need a different shade of blue. I'm just going to go and order that. Or, oh, this red's not quite right. Or I don't really like that material. It's a matter of, okay, this is what's in front of you. This is what you've got to use. You're on a deadline. Be professional. Use all the skills in your toolbox to make it work. Ask other people. Ask for help. Learn from others. Get suggestions. Bounce off other artists. work through any challenges you have, work through your personal hurdles, get over your insecurities, get over your procrastination, get over your sort of, I don't feel like it today. No one cares if you've got a cold, which I did then actually. Just get on with it. That's the main goal. So everybody did, everyone worked incredibly well, and all was resolved. So I then moved on to create the glass and the second headdress, as you saw in the video. Then in discussion with Giulio, we talked about what might happen on the neck. So I created another piece that was indicating the neck, shoulders, and chest. And I used thermosheet to make that shape. So you can see the thermosheet already board here. Then that was glued on and screwed on. Then next, the neck and shoulders were modeled with epoxy sculpt. So you can see that there, and you can see obviously it's white or grey, so it's not the correct color at this stage. And then from there, I then painted the neck and the chest, and then began to mosaic onto that. So I used a range of materials, a large lead feather for the key focus area, and then a necklace area around there. You'll also see that we made a collar, and that was fantastic. And Grana and Aida helped me to make and patina the collar. So next section we're going to look at is the exhibition, but I'm going to pause now. And Michelina, any questions from the crowd?
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm going to have Angela pop up and ask her question first.
Caitlin, the feather-shaped pieces among the glass, were those metallic feathers?
They were lead.
Lead, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then could you also, I mean, if you could talk about where you got those, that would be interesting.
Yes.
And then could you talk about the slag and how you cut it and where you used it?
Yes. Okay, so the first question is regarding the lead feathers. I do work with lead a lot, mindful that it is a toxic material. You need to be wearing gloves and washing your hands and never eat while you're using the lead. So I buy lead flashing, which is lead sheet that is used for roofing. And it's very soft, so I buy it in rolls or sheets, and you can cut it with scissors. If you cut it with scissors, you need to identify which are your lead scissors so you don't go cut other things with it, with those scissors. So I cut the piece out of lead, then I use the hammer and I patinate the lead and to create the feathered shapes, the feathering, so the vein of the feather. Then I use scissors to cut into the edge of the feather. Then I manipulate the feather and turn it around, and then I can color it as well. So it's very easy to use. I use it all the time in lots of different ways. So you can get it at your hardware store in a roll around about, a foot squares around about $40 Australian. And the question regarding slag, so furnace slag is a waste product from the production of smelty, which is enamel glass. So in the crucible, the oxides and the sand are put in and heated and melted and then tipped out onto the plate to form the tortilla or the pizza of smelty. In the bottom of the crucible, there's often waste glass. Once they've finished making that color, they crack out all that waste, and that creates slag. You can have slag from Daldevere, smelty, and other materials. It's not a proper smelty, rendered, gorgeous, enameled thing. So it's fragile, it's brittle, it breaks, it's rough. So when you cut it with a hammer and hardy, and often it will crumble. But I really like that. It looks like a pebble that you've picked up off the ground, but it's often translucent or colored, and you can integrate it. So I integrated it throughout the entire mosaic. Thank you, Angela. Next question.
Caitlin, I just wanted to know if you took any additional materials with you to the symposium. I know sometimes, I mean, they provide so much, which is incredible, but were there anything that you have in your store or stash that you...
Yes, so I took the lead, which was very heavy, 15 kilos of lead. I took copper, wire, copper sheet. I took my own personal tools like cutters, hammers, things like that. I took turquoise, and I took epoxy sculpt. Never leave home without epoxy sculpt. So it solves everything. It can solve substrate problems, sculptural problems, tesserae problems, edging problems. It's the best thing ever. So they're the main things I took. Thank you, Janet.
And we've got Jenny Stewart with a question as well, please.
Jenny.
Hello, everyone. I'm a bit of a ring-in. I'm not a mosaicist myself, but absolutely fascinated by all this. But my question goes to the weight of
Yes.
this amazing
Good
creation.
question.
Could you say a bit about kind of the engineering that went into it?
Okay, great question, Jenny. And yes, it was very heavy, 20 kilos approximately. The hanging system that I use personally was called a French cleat. So a French cleat, or it's also called a Z hook. So it's a long strip that has holes in it, and it has a lip, and it has a opposite, or like a male-female kind of connection, like a U hook. One goes on the work and one goes on the wall. So you're able to anchor the Z hook or the French cleat to the substrate in a number of places. So it's about spreading the load. So this would have been far too heavy to hang on just two hangers. It probably would have ripped through the thermosheet. Some other people used other substrates such as wood and frames, etc. But mine was a thermosheet substrate. So I needed to spread the weight. So not only did I have a French cleat, but then I had a 3-point anchor system off that as well. Jim kindly brought over steel straps. So we had a triangular steel frame on the back. French cleat, steel rod, steel bracket. So 2 steel brackets and 1 French cleat, which all connected together. So they were all joined together with screws, and they all went through the substrate. So the substrate was actually supported probably on about 8 points. So if you think it's 20 kilos, then you're splitting it down. So say even if it was say 25 kilos, so you can say 3 kilos per hanger, and the hanging system is normally designed to hang around 5 kilos per hanger. So that's how I worked that out. And then there was an incredible gallery team which hung it using that French cleat in the gallery. So that's how I dealt with it. Thank you for your question, Jenny.
And on that note, Caitlin, I was just wondering, did you actually measure your suitcase or plan what would actually fit? I have actually thought about that in the past, going to international exhibitions, making a piece actually per size of suitcase or travel supplies that would fit in there.
Yes, I took a large suitcase, and I did have to leave a couple of things at home. I had cut some other 4 pieces of Wetty board, but Aida mentioned that was supplied. So there was no point taking that. So I used their supplied Wetty board thermosheet. I took the key components with me though. And yes, I took a huge suitcase. It was right on the limit of my, so you basically have to work to what flight baggage allowance you have if you don't want to buy more baggage, which I didn't. So I was right on the limit, but I did consider that very carefully. Thank you, Michelina.
We've just got one last question from Margaret Waterton.
Margaret.
Yeah, good day. Hi, Caitlin. It was just about assistance. It's been answered that you worked by yourself, but you obviously had people you could ask advice of as you went through as well.
Correct. So firstly, Aida's team, one key person in that team was Michelle. Now, Michelle is a mosaicist in her own right, and she works with Aida. So she was the everything person. She was the, I need this color paint person. I need LED lights, which some artists did. I need to get to an ATM. I need a chemist. I need this, I need that. So Michelle would facilitate those things. If you needed something, I needed the stained glass. And Michelle just arrived the next day, all with the colors I wanted, all wrapped up perfectly. Okay. So it's also that team of support on the ground that's helping. That's right. And all the artists are very experienced, so we're able to bounce ideas off each other and help each other solve technical problems. But yes, the work is our own. Okay, so Jim did help me to cut things and to clean things, but he didn't actually make the mosaic, but he was there supporting me. So when I say it was a team effort, it certainly was. But the mosaic work was mine.
I am completely awestruck by what was produced at the symposium in this short amount of time. And I think, with many of us being mosaicists here on the call, I can't even imagine trying to get a piece of that size done. Did you ever regret opting to go for something as big and bold as you did?
On my very, very first day there, I showed Giulio, Maestro Giulio, and he said it's too big. And I was like, oh, okay, I think I can do it. He goes, we'll see. And he just walked away. So I did have some doubts, but I knew that a lot of the work was going to be negative space that I was using, particularly at the bottom area there. So that was my goal with that. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is talk about the exhibition. So to start with, we are going to just have a little overview of that exhibition.
Held once again in Rosarito Beach, the second International Mosaic Symposium marks a significant milestone in Mexico's artistic landscape. Artists from Canada, the US, Turkey, Australia, Brazil, Argentina, Japan, Italy, England and Russia have gathered to explore mosaic art through a global lens.
El Gobierno del Estado de Baja California, la Secretaría de Cultura e Instituto de Servicios Culturales de Baja California.
This year's theme, Gender, Culture and Migration, invites reflection on identity, memory and the migratory paths that shape personal and collective stories.
Soy migrante.
These mosaics speak across borders, reimagining territory, body and home. Migration here is not just physical movement. It is a transformative experience of memory, resistance and hope. Each mosaic fragment reveals the layered identities of those who cross both literal and symbolic borders. It is a journey driven by both necessity and longing, marked by inequality, yet filled with resilience. Women's narratives take centre stage, stories shaped by contraction and expansion, by creation and endurance. The exhibition also celebrates gender diversity with works that transform the body into a political canvas. Scarred but unbroken, these pieces affirm identity with pride. Ancestral voices echo through guardian figures that symbolise knowledge and care, whose legacies endure to this day. The future is entrusted to youth to carry the weight of the world, challenged to turn chaos into hope. From divided shores and blood-stained seas, voices rise in resistance and dignity. The body becomes a site of protest and a dream of justice. Each mosaic of glass, stone and memory reminds us to migrate is to rebuild, to connect and to live, because the beauty that unites us knows no borders.
They are the words of the museum designer, Melissa Quintero Velasco.
Melissa and Israel were the incredible gallery directors. So we had a fantastic professional team behind the curation of the exhibition, the artist talks, the hanging of the show, and the setup of the gallery. So I'll share an image of them later. Next, what we'd like to do is share the works of the artists, and each of these deserves its own special spot. So Jim and Nicolina are going to alternate reading through the artist statements that were put together by the artist. So these are the artist's words. Now, bear in mind, there has been some translation, so we'll do our best to get that correct. I would just like to say with Aida and Giulio, so Aida and Giulio, as you know, were the artistic directors, but they also made work. So Giulio's racing around the room helping everybody, and Aida's dealing with press and visitors and speeches, and she's also making work. And Giulio also made, I think he was there for 2.5 weeks, and he made about 16 works because he had to make work for each of the sponsors as a present. He collaborated with Aida, and then he made 2 works of his own. So incredible output, a lesson that we can all learn from him. So Aida's work is first, Tiles of the Exiled, Tesales de Exilio. And this is a large-scale sculptural form, and it's a collaboration between Aida and Giulio. And I'm going to share a couple of photographs of each work while the statements are read. So the first statement will be read by Nicolina.
This work in mosaic art constructs the anatomical portrait of a migrant body, fragmented yet resilient. The mosaic does not attempt to hide the wounds. On the contrary, each tessera tells a story of loss, sacrifice, and courage. The heart, dark in black and red, burns like a flame of mourning and struggle, but within it, a hint of white suggests a spark that endures. It is hope, small, yet enough to keep going. The face, divided into 2 contrasting halves, deepens the metaphor of migrant depersonalization. One side, in pale tones, evokes a ghostly figure, someone without identity, unregistered, invisible to the system. The other, painted in more intense, saturated colors, represents a zombie-like being, a body walking within an oppressive system without voice or belonging. Both sides reveal a denied, displaced existence, fighting to be recognized. The tears flowing from the face not only represent the sorrow of leaving one's homeland, they also serve as a universal language of human pain, of nostalgia, of love that cannot be packed into a suitcase, but still leaves a mark. In the legs, a wall not only obstructs, it becomes part of the body. It speaks of walking as resistance, of the journey as transformation. Each step taken by the migrant is also a confrontation within that wall, which becomes internalized. The most poetic object in the work is the suitcase shaped like a cloud, ambiguous, floating, suspended between the earthly and the dreamlike. Inside are remnants of a past life, letters, clothing, photographs. This cloud is not light. It carries the weight of the story it holds. It is memory, belonging, a root in motion. The piece narrates the migrant experience without idealizing it or reducing it to a statistic. Here, the body is testimony. Each fragment, each tear, each shadow has a voice, and that voice demands humanity.
Thank you very much, Michelina. Next, we will hear from Jim, who will read Giulio's statement on one of Giulio's 14 works, Tijuana Zombie.
Many eyes no longer look to the sky, while love vanishes into the blue, a haze of chemical clouds. I see faces lost in useless videos, vast solitary silences, women and men walking through life, struggling against their own solipsism. So many children massacred in silence, victims of heartless politicians, hands broken by labor, ghosts crossing deserts and seas in search of hope. I see zombies destroyed by a system we pretend is anonymous, unconscious, uninformed, brainwashed by short videos that reshape the mind. Old zombies who no longer question, who believe lies etched in books. Zombies ready to follow the Pied Piper of Hamelin straight into the abyss. I see zombies who once condemned free thinkers, zombies who would burn a new Giordano Bruno to justify genocide, rejecting the memory of their ancestors to sanctify their truths. I see zombies who no longer look into the soul, who no longer seek truth in their own eyes. Now, as always, it is time to cross borders in search of a new world.
Next, we have Neri Mengozel from Turkey. And you notice that I tried to include a shot of the artist with their work. And the reason I've done that is it gives you a sense of the scale. So this one is about 1.5 meters in its width, and it is dimensional, as you'll see in the detailed images. So each of these sections of the work are modeled and then built onto the substrate. So this is Borders Within the Body, Shells of Migration, a Memory Mosaic from Baja California.
This mosaic installation is a visual narrative that reflects on migration through the metaphor of the body. Inspired by the border geography of Baja California, it gives form to the traces, identities, and transformations carried by migrants through fragmented shell-like structures. Each form represents a distinct migratory experience, echoing diverse cultural identities. The metal base, covered with glass and stone pieces, symbolizes both the scars of the past and the effort to build a new life. Color transitions evoke multicultural existence and the tensions lived at border zones. This work underlines that migration is not only a physical movement, but also a process of memory, resilience, and reconstruction.
Next, we have Armando. So Armando is a vibrant young man who is part of Aida's team. I think he's fabulous. Firstly, he's so young and he's a male. Now, in the contemporary mosaic world, there are very few young male mosaicists. And one of the things that Giulio has done is he's sought out people from around the world who he sees a gift in. And he invited Armando and Atsuo, who's a little bit older, to join in this symposium. So in the previous symposia that I've been in, there haven't been any men. So it was so great to have Armando, who has a very bright future in mosaic art, and Atsuo, who's incredible, to be participating here. So Armando was both helping out with a lot of things as well as being a participant. And I have a particular connection with Armando because he's a sculptor. And this is his work, which deals with the wall, the Mexican wall. So it's titled Edge Dweller, and Jim is going to read the statement.
My body carries the weight of a divided city. I cover it with mosaic, not to beautify, but to contain the ravages of an unprotected land. In my arm, I hold the sea, stained red by a river of blood. It is an open wound that will not heal. With a subtle caress, which is all that I have, I wrap and try to stop the flow of the bleeding glass. I tense before the fragments of the border wall and the tiles that evoke the ocean. They mark the arbitrarily imposed boundary and the felt belonging. I raise my face. I do not surrender. I hope, I resist, and from the edge where I dwell, I dream of the dignity of my people.
Thank you, Jim. And Armando asked all the artists to write on his work. So you can see very small elements of text. So we all contributed and wrote words around the theme on Armando's work. Next up, we have Bia from Brazil. And Bia and I shared a birthday celebration at the event, which was very fun. And we shared a beautiful cake and some celebratory drinks one late evening when we were working late at the studio. And this is Bia's work, The Sun is Placed, and we're going to hear from Mick now.
The Portuguese expression, the sun is placed, means when someone is searching for personal fulfillment and complete happiness. It's like reaching the best place to live. In this work, the sun was placed in a prominent position, emphasizing that man is always searching for a better quality of life, his place in the sun. The calendar around it marks the rhythm of nature that defined ancient man's actions, including the need to migrate. For modern man, it marks the passage of time, the limits that life imposes, and the dreams to be achieved. The migratory routes were portrayed in two senses, showing alternation, instability, and the eternal search.
And next we have the work by Megan Walsh from the United States titled Push Pull. And for Meg's portrait photo, I've included a photo at night because one of the things that you don't see in the gallery shot is that the work is illuminated. So it's illuminated from behind and there's a passage of lights throughout the structures. So it's important to include this image of the work at night because the illumination of the structures is an important point.
Immigration is both a push and a pull feeling. Migrants leave home, sometimes by choice, sometimes by necessity. Uneven global wealth distribution, extraction, and injustice cause poverty. Poverty leads to greater creativity and invention out of necessity. Women, especially, create through expansion and contraction, pushing and pulling. Like birds, like fish, naturally, our souls have no borders.
And next we will see the work of Giorgia Palombi from Italy. And Giorgia works with a really unique set of materials. Her work is also illuminated with light from behind. So the elements that you see are elevated from the substrate below. And she also uses a lot of felt. So there's handmade felt pieces, handmade ceramic inclusions, some shibori fabric work as well as some epoxy sculpt. So very much a mixed media piece called Invisible Connections. Mick, can you please read George's statement?
It is a visual and interior journey that explores the profound meaning of migration, not only as a geographical displacement, but as a constant search for belonging, roots, and identity. Born in Rome and currently living in Spain, I carry with me the dual experience of one who leaves and one who arrives. Every migration is born from a desire to find a better place, a calmer sea. But we soon understand that it's not just the surface that defines a place. What truly matters lies deep within. That is where the invisible connections that unite us are revealed. That emotional and cultural heritage that we all, regardless of our origin, carry within our hearts. This work gives shape to that subtle and resilient thread that connects each individual to their culture, even when they try to integrate into another. Each element represented symbolizes a distinct culture. Together they form a harmonious framework where identities are not erased, but coexist, intertwine, and mutually enrich each other. Invisible connections are the relationships we build, the emotions we share, the memories that accompany us. They are what makes us human, even before we are migrants. This work is an invitation to look beyond, to delve beneath the surface of things, to discover the silent beauty that unites us all, a beauty that has no flag, but that speaks the universal language of the heart.
Next, we have Atsuo from Japan. And Atsuo's work is particularly engaging because he makes these fabulous tesserae out of ceramics, and he makes his own glazes. So he makes his glazes and then he applies that to his ceramic ware, his earthenware, and then fires that and then uses that to mosaic. So you'll notice that in his work, there's a lot of unusual shapes. This 3 here, Angela, is slag, by the way. And he also bases his practice off the Fibonacci sequence. So this is something that we've been talking about in the Fundamental Academy recently. So when Atsuo started work, I couldn't work out what he was doing. Like he was skipping all over the place. He's like starting here, then going here, then a centimeter here, then 5 centimeters there. I couldn't work out his method. I knew he knew what he was doing, but I didn't understand why he was skipping around the whole composition the whole time. But when we actually study and look at the composition more closely, and when I saw it evolve, I realized he's working from that Fibonacci sequence in his actual making process. So his work titled Sun and Moon, we're going to hear from Jim to read his artist statement. Thank you, Jim.
This work represents the sun and the moon as 2 sides of the same coin. They are opposite poles that, it is said, maintain the balance of nature through their respective cycles. Since ancient times, in various cultures, the sun has been represented as a symbol of life and rebirth, and the moon as a symbol of death and change. The sun also symbolizes man and the moon, woman. But in Japanese culture, the sun is considered a feminine goddess, Amaratasu Omikami, and the moon a masculine god, Tsukuyomi Mikoto. We are culturally distinct. We are equal and different pieces, coexisting in distant spaces, breathing the same air. Let us open ourselves to accept and enrich ourselves with differences. Let us understand each other, see a little further, and above all, develop respect for others. The invitation to this symposium led me to explore Mexico and be deeply inspired by its colors, traditions, and culture. By spending time with artists from various countries, I was able to develop new sensibilities and experience from each culture. Thanks to my friends, Viva Mexico, and everything I've experienced.
And the reason I don't have a shot of Atsuo with his final work is that he had to leave early. So he had not only making the work, but actually finishing the work early because he had to get back to work. He works in restoration, interestingly. Incredible artist. Make sure you follow all of these artists on socials. Incredible. Now, next we have Julie Sperling from Canada and their work, Disruptive Without Apology.
Disruptive Without Apology is a reflection of the artist's own non-binary gender journey and a meditation on being trans and gender non-conforming in today's political climate. It contrasts the hostility and resistance of a transphobic world with the lightness and freedom that come with self-discovery, acceptance, and living without apology. The top surgery scars serve as points of conflict and upheaval, but also of creation and transformation. They are both obvious markers of difference and sources of pride. The graffiti paint represents unbridled freedom of expression and is paired with the colors of the trans and non-binary flags, as well as several small X's. the non-binary gender marker.
Now, in their work, Julie has used their signature element of layers of paint. So it's hard to see, but in the statement, they refer to layers of graffiti paint, and that's what these are here. So Julie has obtained thick layers of graffiti paint that they have removed from certain surfaces and then chipped away at the surface of the paint to reveal the layers of color beneath. So I thought that was worth explaining because sometimes it's hard to understand what material that is. So you can see that they've integrated that throughout both the top and the bottom piece, along with other materials such as obsidian and wood and marble and glass and other salvage products. But the recycled paint is through this section here and also on the top. Next, we have Julie Edmonds. So we had two Julies on the team. So this is Julie Edmonds from England, and her work is titled The Aztec Priestess.
The role of the Aztec priestess serves as a powerful symbol of female spiritual authority and social influence. While much of pre-Hispanic history often focuses on male warriors and rulers, the Aztec priestess held an important position, which included conducting rituals, overseeing education, and safeguarding cultural and religious knowledge. The priestess stands not only as a figure of power, care, and resilience, but also as a lasting emblem of female empowerment.
And you can see that their headdress is a similar concept or a similar subject matter to the work I created, but completely different. So it's so fabulous to see that artists can come up with similar ideas, but investigate them and unpack them in completely different ways. So Julie used several layers of thermosheet to stack one above the other. So there's a definite relief element to this piece. Okay, so we have three more works to go. The next one is the work of Grana from Argentina, and the title is My River, Your River.
Borders are limits that humans physically impose, barriers that prevent free passage. Everything is matter, and matter often remains inert on the other side. That's where illusion, imagination, the need for a future arrived. There remains food for the carrion that takes matter. But dreams, they don't touch them. They continue to throb in the one who arrived and in the one who stayed. And the sirens will continue to sing on the other side of the river, seeking to reach the dreamers without visas, the rumbling bellies, those fleeing their lands for a better world.
The second last artist's work is Aida from Russia, and the title is Mind Borders. So Aida graduated from the Spielberg School and runs an active mosaic community in Siberia, Russia. A vibrant young lady with so much talent and a prolific body of work with, again, another incredibly bright future in mosaic.
Crossing the borders of countries, it seems to us that we are already free, already different. However, we always carry within us the culture of the place where we grew up and where our origins belong, where people speak our native language and where any gesture is clear and simple. At the same time, we always have stereotypes and expectations about a new place. So we still need to be able to overcome our internal boundaries, our mind borders that lie inside like high walls that won't let the new culture into our hearts. This piece shows the psychological aspect of the emigration process, how we try to expand our minds by breaking borders. By opening our minds at the same time, we become freer and we change ourselves, embracing everything that is new.
And finally, my work, which you've seen already, but this is the finished piece. And Michelina is going to read my statement. It's titled The Weight of the World.
The face cast from my daughters represents today's youth, who are the future, but today are burdened with the world that we will leave them. In so many ways, we have failed them. Tomorrow, they will carry not only that burden, but also hope. Hope that they can calm the chaos that they will inherit, to turn the darkness into light, to heal the wounds of the past and present. This work draws inspiration from the Aztec goddess
Xochitl. I think it's pronounced correctly. I'm not actually positive.
I know. I wasn't going to attempt it. Known as the mother of all humanity, people, races, and languages. She wears a headdress of feathers symbolizing birds who are migratory. They have no borders nor boundaries and are free, as all people should also be. In Aztec culture, birds are often seen as symbols of power, strength, courage, and divinity.
And then just concluding with a small video piece of my work. I'd also like to thank, again, everybody, the key people involved in this event, particularly our Maestra Aida Valencia and Maestro Giulio Menossi, as well as the team. So Israel and Melissa Israel was the gallery coordinator and Melissa was the gallery designer and exhibition designer and museographer. We also had a lot to do with the Kumeyaay people of Rosarito, and I was particularly concerned about this because I did feel, could my work be viewed as cultural appropriation? Because I was using a symbol from the Aztec and Mayan cultures that may have been seen as a cultural appropriation issue. So I actually sought permission from several people on my arrival around my concept, and I spoke directly to the Kumeyaay. And she was actually very, very happy with what I decided to do. So I was pleased to have the Kumeyaay people involved in the entire event, from welcoming ceremonies and opening ceremonies, and as well at the exhibition. Thanks as well to all the wonderful artists, and a huge thanks to my business partner and life partner, Jim Stewart, for all his support and incredible encouragement and involvement with the entire event. Thank you to all of these people, and also to the State Centre for the Arts in Rosarito Beach. So this is the time for any other questions about the actual exhibition or anything else. If there's questions in the chat, Mick.
Lots of comments, just a lot of awe and positive appreciation for all of those amazing works. Julianne Fletcher did say it was beautifully read by Jim. So I agree, Julie. I think Jim should be on this side of the camera more often. It's wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, for watching along. So I think it's very important to read the statements and to also see the diversity of the work. And also to remember that not everyone there has the same level of experience. Not everyone there has the same level of training. Not everyone there has used the same materials before. So you're getting people from all over the world, bringing them together, putting them in this intense melting pot and saying, go. So, you know, it's lovely to look at that outcome and see the diversity of that, and then how people grow from this event going forward.
Angela asked, what dates will the exhibition be open to see? It's exhibiting currently right now, yes?
That's a question for Aida. Aida, how long is the exhibition on for?
7 weeks more. Okay,
and
so
yep.
Roughly it will be 3 months in the gallery. Okay.
Thank you, Aida. And have you got any other comments regarding the exhibition now it's been up for several weeks? Have you seen any feedback from the other visitors and taken other groups?
We have taken lots of groups, 2 or 3 tourist groups that come from San Diego. And I think everybody is in awe of all the works done in 12 days. It's a great thing for me to have the honor of having all the artists come to my town, to my state, and work here. And all of us made such a good group that all the artwork has a lot of energy and a lot of power. So we have had very good feedback from all around our state and from San Diego.
Thank you, Aida. And the other thing, of course, I haven't included is all the socializing. You didn't need to see that, but there was a lot of eating, drinking, festivities, dancing, cultural tours, artist in residence tours, winery tours. There was a lot. We were very well looked after.
And George wants to know how far it might be from San Diego. Do you know that, Aida?
30 minutes from San Diego, and I think 35 minutes more from Tijuana to Rosarito.
Great.
Depends on the traffic.
Yeah.
Karen Lee is wondering how many symposiums you've participated in, Caitlin.
Okay, that's a great question, Karen. I have been involved in 3 in-person events and 1 virtual event. So that's a total of 4. In 2018, I went to Sardinia, and you can see I had a bird thing already, right? This was called Colors of the Night, or Cockatoo of the Night, and I was working with the black cockatoo feather and the dynamism of the cockatoo in the night sky. So that was Sardinia. Then I participated in a virtual symposium in Turkey in 2021. So that was during lockdown, and that work was themed on Göbekli Tepe, which is an astroarchaeological site just east of Şanlıurfa, which is in eastern Turkey. And then I returned to Adana, I think it was 2022, actually it was 2023, for the in-person symposium in Adana there. So this is essentially my 4th event, and I would love to go again. It's fantastic. So, but there will be there have been other Australians attend these symposia as well, and other Australians have been asked and are being asked to attend. So I hope to join at some time in the future.
I find that so inspiring, Caitlin, and I know everyone here can understand how busy you are and how much you are doing for building AOA and all the teaching that you do, but I just have to acknowledge how important it is that you are also taking time for your own practice and you walk the talk. And
it's very
we are
important for me
all
to do
so
that.
impressed. We're so impressed by that you are constantly working on your own creative practice, and it's incredibly inspiring to all of us. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing it too.
It was a privilege for me to be there, and a great part of the privilege was to see so many artists so engrossed and so deep into their practice and into their work. It was very gratifying to see Caitlin finally with the opportunity to make her own art. She lives, breathes, walks, talks, teaches, thinks mosaic every day, but it's not often that she has the opportunity to make something for herself, which was really great to see. And one further thing is, I think I will send a cautionary tale of how to clean that piece to the people that have bought it, because it's a bit like offering dental services to a shark. But anyway, it was all very fun. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And Michelina, as well as the fabulous Aida, Valencia, Maestro, Giulio, Menossi, all the artists, all the supporting team, and of course all of you for being part of this fantastic international community that we've got going. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Great seeing you all. Thanks for joining us.